Hi, I'm Linda Walker. I'm 29 years old. Have you ever watched a father lie straight to his daughter's face about just a casual family lunch, while secretly hosting a $500,000 engagement gala for her brother in a five-star hotel across town? My father did exactly that. On a Thursday afternoon, he called to tell me not to bother coming that weekend. Nothing important, he said. Very low key. You should go up to the mountains and enjoy the snow. What he didn't mention was that this nothing was actually my brother's 540 guest engagement celebration at the Cascade Regency Hotel in downtown Portland, an event my entire family had been planning for 3 months. Everyone was invited. Everyone except me. And somehow, while they toasted my brother's future under crystal chandeliers, I was 3 hours away at Lake Tahoe, about to post a ski selfie that would accidentally hijack their perfect evening, expose years of quiet exclusion, and start a chain reaction that cost my father his reputation and my brother his promotion. And this is how I accidentally became the family villain, and why I now believe that sometimes the sharpest revenge is simply refusing to shrink. If you're listening to this, subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. Because if you've ever been the forgotten one in your own family, this might feel uncomfortably familiar. Growing up as Gregory Whitmore's daughter should have been a golden ticket. Whitmore Urban Group controls over $520 million in commercial real estate across Oregon and beyond. My father built his empire from a single strip center in Salem into one of Portland's most powerful development conglomerates. People in the industry say his handshake can move markets. But being his daughter meant something very different from being his son. Tyler, my brother, is 4 years older and was groomed from day one to inherit the throne. By 31, he was director of strategic growth at Whitmore Urban Group, with a glass-walled office overlooking the Willamette, a company Raven EV X-Line, and most importantly, our father's constant approval. I was the creative one. The child who, as my father liked to joke to his golfing buddies, played with buildings instead of building wealth. The irony? While Tyler made deals around other people's designs, I actually drew the spaces those people lived and worked in. I launched Walker Creative Architecture at 23. By 29, we had 12 full-time employees, a waiting list of clients, and 6 months earlier I'd won the Rising Architect Under 30 award from the Pacific Northwest Architecture Guild. Modern Structures Review had even printed a small feature on my work. My family never mentioned it. Not because they didn't know, because I stopped telling them. I learned the hard way that sharing any win only led to little smirks and phrases like, "That's cute, honey, but when you're ready for real work, there's always a place for you at Whitmore Urban Group." My father had a favorite line, delivered with a patronizing squeeze of my shoulder in front of his friends. Tyler was born to run empires. Linda, well, at least she can draw pretty pictures of them. That sentence echoed in my mind every time a client chose my concept over a legacy firm's, every time I signed another contract, every time someone from the industry called me a force to watch. The part that hurt wasn't only the dismissal. It was how calmly they'd already written my story for me, without ever reading a single page. The exclusion started in little ways and then turned into a pattern I couldn't ignore. In the last 2 years alone, I'd been left out of 3 major family meetings, the kind where lawyers appeared and words like succession, trust structures, and long-term control floated through the air like confetti. Whenever I asked, the answer was always the same. "You don't work for the company, sweetheart. This stuff would just bore you." Last Thanksgiving, I arrived at my parents' place in Maple Ridge Estates at 2 p.m. sharp, exactly when my mother told me to be there. I walked into a dining room being cleared, plates stacked, candles half melted, and my aunts and uncles drifting into the living room cradling glasses of brandy. "Oh, Linda," my mother said, genuinely startled, napkins still in hand. "We started a little early. Tyler has a flight. There's a plate for you in the kitchen." 23 relatives, and they simply carved the turkey without me. Later that night, they posted the official family Thanksgiving photo. There was a perfect gap in the group where someone might have stood. That someone was me. Then there was my father's 63rd birthday, or as he called it, an intimate family dinner. Somehow, that intimate gathering ended up being a 200-person black tie reception at the Willamette Grand Hotel with half of Portland's business elite in attendance, just not his daughter. I found out because one of Tyler's friends forgot to hide their tagged photos. When I confronted my mother, she sighed. "Don't make a scene, Linda. You know how your father is about business functions. He didn't want you to feel out of place." It wasn't screaming or slammed doors. It was quieter than that. I wasn't actively rejected. I was simply edited out. No rows, no big fights, just a slow, careful erasure. That's what really broke me. They weren't angry at me. They were indifferent. Meanwhile, there was this other part of my life they didn't know about. The one that would change everything. 8 months before the engagement disaster, I'd applied for the project everyone in our region secretly wanted, the Tahoe Crest Luxury Eco Resort, a $97 million sustainable mountain resort commissioned by Summit Ridge Resorts Corporation. 112 firms submitted proposals. 12 made it to round 2, 3 to the final shortlist. I was the youngest lead by at least 15 years, and the only one without a 50-person team behind me. The night before the final presentation, my studio floor was covered in drawing sets and models. I remember standing in the middle of the chaos, barefoot, a cup of cold coffee in my hand, thinking, if I win this, there is no way they'll be able to pretend I'm just playing architect. Because that $97 million wasn't just a contract, it was a number my father understood, a language he respected. For 8 months, my team and I lived on caffeine and takeout, building and rebuilding an idea that seemed impossible on paper. A modular eco-luxury system that could cut construction costs by 30% while still hitting the highest environmental benchmarks. The big firms called it unrealistic. We built it anyway. If I hid that win, if I let my family keep telling the story of Linda the starving artist, I knew I'd be complicit in my own erasure. The official announcement was scheduled for November 16th at 9:00 p.m. at a big industry event in Portland. Summit Ridge's president, Colin Granger, planned to reveal the chosen architect in front of hundreds of developers, investors, and designers, including, as I'd recently learned, my father. He'd been trying to court Summit Ridge for over a decade. The confirmation email from Dana Brooks, Summit Ridge's chief financial operations director, sat in my inbox like a live wire. "Congratulations again, Ms. Walker. We look forward to announcing your selection publicly on Saturday evening." The line I couldn't stop rereading was, "The youngest principal design architect in Summit Ridge Resort's 40-year history." But while my professional life was quietly about to explode upward, my personal reputation within my own family was sinking in the opposite direction. 3 weeks before that night, I'd been at a friend's wedding. During the reception, I walked by the bar and heard Tyler's unmistakable laugh. "My sister?" he told a semicircle of Whitmore executives, clustered like planets around him. "She plays at being an architect. She draws pretty pictures for bored rich women who want a new kitchen. Dad still pays her rent, but we don't talk about it." I froze behind a column. The worst part was recognizing some of the people at the bar, developers I'd actually met professionally. They chuckled politely, eyes flicking with curiosity, as if they were mentally updating whatever they'd heard about me. My father's destruction was softer, but even more damaging. At a charity auction, I donated a full design consultation for free. When the auctioneer got to my lot, my father stood up and clinked his glass. "That's my daughter's little offering," he announced. "She dabbles in design. Hopefully someone can give her some real-world experience out of it." The winning bidder's smile had been kind, but it wasn't respect, it was pity. What nobody realized was that I hadn't taken a cent from my parents since I was 23. Walker Creative Architecture had made $4.1 million in revenue the previous year. We employed engineers who'd left bigger names to join us. The downtown loft Tyler claimed our father paid for? I'd bought it outright after landing a hotel renovation that became something of a local case study. For extra irony, my brother's glamorous fiancée, Alyssa Hartman, was my old college roommate from Coastal State University in Santa Cruz. She'd watched me pull all-nighters in studio while she bounced from party to party. She of all people knew how hard I worked. And yet on Tyler's arm, she'd nod sympathetically when he talked about how Linda still hasn't really found her footing. By November, the narrative had settled like concrete. Tyler, the heir. Linda, the fragile almost artist. So when my father called me that Thursday, I should have expected what came next. "Linda, quick thing," he said as soon as I picked up. "No, hello. This weekend we're having a small get-together. Just some family, a little lunch at the house." I shifted the phone. "Oh, sure. What time should I—" "Actually, you don't need to come," he cut in smoothly. "It's mostly Tyler's friends and some extended family, business people. You'd be bored. Very casual. Really, you should go do that mountain thing you love. The snow is gorgeous right now." He hung up before I could find words. The whole call lasted 43 seconds. That familiar heaviness settled in my chest. The kind where you're not sure if you're more hurt or more tired. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed. It was my cousin Sophie Langford, a sophomore at Coastal State. "OMG," she texted. "Can't believe Tyler and Alyssa's engagement party is gonna be insane." My heart skipped. "Engagement party?" I typed back. "What party?" "The one Saturday at the Cascade Regency. Mom said the whole family's been planning it for months. Aren't you coming?" I stared at the screen. "Small family lunch. Nothing important. Go enjoy the mountains." Her next message contained a screenshot from Alyssa's story, a gold-foiled invitation with calligraphy that read, "Gregory and Elaine Whitmore request the pleasure of your company at the engagement celebration of Tyler Whitmore and Alyssa Hartman." The event tag said, "Cascade Regency Hotel, Grand Ballroom, black tie, 7:00 p.m. In hashtags, #Whitmore, Hartman, #Regency, engagement, 540 guests." As I scrolled, I found Alyssa's planning highlights. A cake tasting at Cascade Regency's restaurant with my parents beaming beside her. A floral design meeting at Magnolia and Vine Events, with Tyler's groomsmen weighing in on centerpieces. Band auditions at the Silver Lantern Hall, where even my grandmother, Marjorie, had been invited to share her opinion. Everyone had been included in the process. Everyone had a role to play. Everyone. Except me. The final slap came from a vendor's page. The party favors were custom champagne bottles, each wrapped with a photo montage of the Whitmore family through the years. I zoomed in on one image. My parents' Christmas gathering from the previous year. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. 23 people posed in front of the fireplace. I remembered that day all too well. I'd arrived early, still in my coat, waiting in my car after my mother texted, "We'll call you when we're ready for photos, it's chaos in here." No call ever came. When I walked in, everyone was already pulling off their coordinated scarves. That's the photo they used, the family shot with everyone arranged just so, except I wasn't in it. 3 months before that Thursday phone call, everything had begun to shift in another part of my life. I'd been invited to present my final design for the Tahoe Crest Eco Resort in Summit Ridge's boardroom on the 38th floor of Skyline Crest Tower, with the Cascades stretched out beyond the glass. Colin Granger sat at the head of the table, exactly the way people described him, measured, impossible to read. When I finished my 90-minute presentation, he stood and walked toward the windows. "Ms. Walker," he said, hands in his pockets, gaze on the hills. "I've seen a lot of mountain resort proposals in the last 20 years. Everyone promises luxury with a conscience. You're the only one who didn't try to force architecture on the landscape." He pointed out at the distant tree line. "You're letting the terrain speak, and you're amplifying it. And you're telling me you can cut our baseline construction costs by 30%, while hitting standards my board called fantasy." He turned back to me. "Why isn't Whitmore Urban Group backing this? Your father has sent me almost 50 pitches over the years. None of them looked like this." The air felt electric. "I prefer to earn my opportunities," I said carefully, "not inherit them." For the first time, his mouth curved into a genuine smile. Gregory Whitmore's daughter who goes by her own last name, he mused. The irony writes itself. Later, in the hallway, Dana Brooks pulled me aside. Off the record, she said quietly. Colin has been trying to work with your father for ages. Something always felt off. Your proposal? It's exactly what we've been waiting for. Someone hungry enough to actually innovate, not just recycle whatever worked 10 years ago. She squeezed my arm. We'll be in touch very soon. Weeks later, the email arrived. The contract was signed, internal approvals complete, and the public reveal would happen at the Pacific Innovation and Development Expo on November 16th at the Cascade Regency Hotel. At 9 p.m., right in the middle of the evening program. In the Windsor Room, adjacent to the Grand Ballroom, where my brother's engagement party was booked. The follow-up email was even more surreal. Contract number SRR 2024-9731 will be displayed on the screen along with your portfolio highlights. Colin particularly wants maximum visibility. Many expo attendees are expected to attend the Whitmore-Hartman celebration next door. I remember reading it 3 times. My family would be in the ballroom. The industry would be in the summit. And the wall between the two was literally just a partition. Except I wasn't invited to the ballroom. I'd already planned a Saturday escape. Drive to Lake Tahoe at dawn, spend the day skiing, then head back to Portland in time to watch the announcement online from my loft. The irony of my father celebrating his perfect son while my greatest professional win rolled out quietly in another room felt almost poetic. On Saturday, I woke up before sunrise, loaded my board into my Raven EVX line, and drove out of the city while the streets were still half asleep. The outline of the Cascades slowly turned pink in my rearview mirror. Lake Tahoe greeted me with 15 inches of fresh powder from a storm 2 nights earlier. By mid-afternoon, I'd made 8 runs down a steep bowl, each one scrubbing layers of old hurt off my skin like snow. Around 7:30 p.m., I stopped at Sierra Summit Lodge for hot chocolate. The sunset spilled gold over the slopes, and on impulse, I took out my phone. Wind-burned cheeks, messy braid under a beanie, goggles pushed up, grinning like a kid. Behind me, the peaks stretched out, luminous. I snapped a selfie and posted it to Instagram with a simple caption. Perfect powder day at Tahoe. Sometimes you have to breathe at 9,000 feet. # powder therapy, # Tahoe crest. Then I slid my phone into my pocket and headed for one last run. Down in Portland, the engagement gala would be starting, Tyler in his custom tux, Alyssa in whatever gown she'd been teasing her followers with all week. My parents playing gracious hosts. I remember thinking, with a calm I hadn't felt in years, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. 10 minutes later, on the chairlift back up, my phone started vibrating non-stop in my jacket. When I reached the bottom, I finally checked. 47 missed calls from Dad, 18 from Mom, 12 from Tyler, 20 plus unknown numbers, plus unknown. Group chats I hadn't been active in for months. A text from Sophie popped up at the top. Linda, everyone is freaking out. Your Tahoe post just popped up on the big screen. Alyssa was live and the comments are insane. Uncle Greg looks like he's going to explode. My stomach flipped. I opened Alyssa's live stream replay. She was glowing in a champagne Alexandra Rowan couture gown, gliding through the grand ballroom, narrating for her 4 million followers. And now I want to show you this amazing family montage the planners put together. She pointed the phone at the giant screen. First it showed childhood photos of Tyler, then pictures of my parents, then bigger group shots, and in the corner of her screen, a notification slid across. Linda Walker posted a new photo. She tapped it without thinking. My ski selfie filled the massive ballroom screen. The camera wobbled as background voices rose. Is that Linda? Someone near the phone said. Is she in Tahoe right now? Why isn't Greg's daughter here? Another voice asked loudly. The comments flooded the live. Wait, where's the sister? Why would she be skiing during her brother's engagement party? Why isn't she invited? The video caught my father's face in real time. Confusion, then anger, then something I'd never seen before. Panic. A new text buzzed in next to the replay. From Colin Granger. Interesting timing on your ski post, Linda. The ballroom is buzzing. Your father just told my table you're dealing with personal issues and couldn't attend. See you at 9 for the announcement? Or are you really in Tahoe? I typed back one line. I'm exactly where my father told me to be, enjoying the mountains. Back at Sierra Summit Lodge, I stared at my screen while the phone rang again. This time, I picked up. My father's voice exploded through the speaker, the roar of ballroom chatter muffled behind him. You selfish, vindictive! He stopped himself, lowered his tone, but the fury still crackled. Get in your car, now. You have 3 hours. If you're not here by 10, you're done, Linda. Do you understand me? Done with this family. I blinked. Dad, I said quietly, you told me this was just a casual lunch. You told me not to come. Don't play games with me, you knew. You've always been jealous of your brother, and now you're trying to ruin his night. In the background, I heard someone murmur, Greg, Summit Ridge wants a word. They're asking about the announcement. My father's breath shifted. What announcement? He snapped off mic. What is she talking about? I could almost see the pieces clicking together in his mind. This is about your little design project, isn't it? He hissed back into the phone. You think landing some small job makes you special? Tyler just secured a $58 million partnership through Whitmore Urban Group. That's real success, not your artistic dabbling. It landed like it always did, that mix of belittling and dismissal wrapped in practicality. Then he played his last card. Your grandmother would be ashamed of you right now. That was when I knew he was desperate. He only brought up my grandmother when he was out of arguments. Funny, I said softly. Grandma's the one who taught me to stand up for myself. The lift's closing soon. I've got to go. Have a great party. And for the first time in my life, I hung up on Gregory Whitmore. If you're still listening, this is where everything flips. Because while the Whitmores were scrambling to contain the rogue daughter skiing at Tahoe scandal, the man my father had spent 10 years trying to impress was about to step onto a microphone and turn the entire night upside down. At 8:45 p.m., as I sat in my Raven in the Tahoe parking lot with the heater humming, an unknown Portland number called. Ms. Walker? This is Jason Reed from the Pacific Business Herald. I'm at the Pacific Innovation and Development Expo. Colin Granger just asked if we could confirm whether you'll be calling in for the announcement. He seems to think you might be indisposed. For a second, my brain lagged. The announcement is still happening? I asked. Oh yes, in fact, Mr. Granger just told the room that tonight's selection will, quote, redefine what we consider architectural excellence in the Pacific Northwest. The interesting part. He lowered his voice conspiratorially. Half the attendees are now in the Whitmore Hartman engagement party across the hall. Your father just gave a toast about family legacy, and let me see if I can quote him. Choosing successors who understand real business. I could hear the murmur of voices and clink of glasses through his phone. Is Colin in the ballroom? I asked. He's at the VIP table with your father, some of Summit Ridge's board, and several Whitmore Urban Group directors. Oh, hang on, he just stood up. Jason's voice sharpened. Ms. Walker, are you going to speak on this call, or should I just leave you on speaker so you can listen? Put me on speaker, I said. I'll listen from here. He did. The ambient noise dipped, and then Colin's voice rang out, amplified through the ballroom PA. Ladies and gentlemen, before Tyler shares a few words, I have an announcement that concerns the future of development in this region. Greg, you'll want to hear this. Silence dropped like a curtain. Colin, my father's voice cut in faintly. This is my son's engagement party. Can't this wait? No, Greg, Colin said, still polite but firm. It really can't. For the past 8 months, Summit Ridge Resorts Corporation has been running a competitive search for the principal design architect of our new $97 million Tahoe Crest luxury eco-resort. 112 firms submitted proposals. Tonight, I am pleased to announce our selection. The ballroom's big screen, which had been cycling through Tyler and Alyssa's romantic photos, flickered to the Summit Ridge logo. The winning design reduces our projected construction costs by 30%, while meeting environmental standards our board initially labeled as unattainable. The architect behind this design is the youngest in our company's history to lead a project of this magnitude. My portfolio flashed up on the screen: the Riverside Crest Boutique Hotel renovation, the Willow Bend Eco Innovation Hub, the Portland Vista Art Pavilion. Then my headshot from Modern Structures Review with the headline, Rising Star Architect, Linda Walker reshapes the Northwest skyline. Ladies and gentlemen, Colin said, Summit Ridge Resort's principal design architect for the Tahoe Crest project is Linda Walker of Walker Creative Architecture. The silence lasted about 5 seconds. Then the room exploded. Through Jason's phone, I heard gasps, chairs scraping, a woman's voice saying sharply, "Isn't that Greg's daughter? The one who's not here tonight?" Another voice, "Wait, I thought she was having a hard time. He told us she was still finding herself." Colin continued easily over the noise. Contract number SRR 2024-9731 was signed 3 months ago. Walker Creative Architecture's modular concept beat submissions from firms 10 times her size. Dana Brooks, our Chief Financial Operations Director, can confirm the process was blind until the final round. Dana's voice came through the mic. That's correct. We had no idea Ms. Walker was related to Mr. Whitmore until after the selection. The proposal stood on its own merit. On the phone, I heard Colin turn slightly. "Greg," he said into the mic, "your daughter just secured the largest architectural contract in our portfolio this year. Congratulations." Jason whispered, "Your father just turned 3 shades paler. Tyler looks like someone unplugged him, and..." He coughed to hide a laugh. "Alyssa's live stream is still going. Her comments are feral." I quickly opened Instagram. The chat on her live replay was going too fast to read in real time. Family drama live? Wait, they didn't invite her? 97 Engagement ring. Sorry, not sorry. Justice for Linda. On screen, my father stepped forward. "There's clearly been some misunderstanding," he began stiffly. "Linda is working through some personal things and couldn't join us tonight." Colin's voice cut in, cool and surgical. "Personal issues," he repeated. "She seemed perfectly fine when she won that contract 3 months ago, and according to her Instagram, she's snowboarding at Lake Tahoe right now. Hardly sounds like a crisis." Someone near the mic said loudly, "Why wasn't she invited, Greg?" Another chimed in, "How do you miss talent like that in your own family?" Everything my father had built on control and image for decades was coming apart in front of 500 sets of eyes. Jason kept narrating in a low voice. "The Washingtons are heading for the exit. Kingsley from your dad's board is on his phone, and it does not look good. Half the Whitmore board members are whispering in a corner, and, oh wow, your grandmother just stood up." I heard her before I saw any clip. Marjorie's voice, still strong at 86, rang like a bell through the ballroom. "I always wondered why Linda wasn't at our gatherings. Tonight I have my answer. Gregory Whitmore, you should be ashamed of yourself." Then, through Jason's phone, came one more sound, my own voicemail greeting. Somehow my father had tried to call me again with his phone still on speaker. "You've reached Linda Walker with Walker Creative Architecture. I'm either with a client or on the slopes. Leave a message and I'll call you back." My father's 49th call that night went straight to voicemail, broadcast to the entire ballroom. It was the most poetic metaphor I could have asked for. Tyler snapped. "This is her fault," he shouted, his voice cracking. "She planned this. She's always tried to steal my spotlight." "It's my night," he yelled into a mic that the band had forgotten to turn off. "She's just trying to prove she's better than us because she wouldn't join the family business." "Better than you?" Colin said mildly. "Your sister just closed a $97 million design contract on her own. What exactly are you doing besides inheriting your father's contacts?" The room sucked in a collective breath. Someone near the back added, We all know who actually pushed that $58 million deal across the line, Tyler. It wasn't you. Through the scattered clips now popping up on social media, I watched Alyssa unclip her mic, her face pale but composed. "I need air," she said, and walked straight off stage. Within minutes, guests were streaming out. The ice sculpture of T&A in the center of the room glistened in the half-empty ballroom, slowly melting into a puddle. Jason whispered, "Ms. Walker, this entire event has turned into the Whitmore implosion, and you're not even here." At 9:47 p.m., sitting in my Raven in that freezing Tahoe parking lot, I made a decision. If my family wanted to pretend I didn't exist, I wasn't going to beg them to see me, but I was absolutely going to make sure the world did. I opened Instagram and created a carousel post I'd been saving for after Summit Ridge's official press release. First slide, a photo of the signed contract, SRR 2024-9731, clearly visible. Second, my team at Walker Creative Architecture cheering in our studio. Third, the Modern Structures Review feature. Fourth, the physical model of Tahoe Crest glowing under warm lights. Fifth, a screenshot of Colin's email. "Congratulations on making history." My caption? "Thrilled to finally share that Walker Creative Architecture has been selected as principal design architect for Summit Ridge Resort's $97 million Tahoe Crest Eco Resort project. 8 months of deadlines, all-nighters, and a team that never stopped believing. Thank you, at Colin Granger and at Dana Brooks, for choosing vision and innovation over pedigree. Here's to building something that honors the mountain." I tagged every relevant account. At Summit Ridge Resorts, at Modern Structures Review, at Northwest Enterprise Journal, National Guild of Modern Architects. Within half an hour, the post had 50,000 likes and thousands of shares. Modern Structures Review reposted it. Northwest Enterprise Journal emailed asking for an interview. Architects I'd grown up idolizing commented their congratulations. And then, buried between all the notifications, was a comment that made my hands actually shake. "Thrilled to be partnering with the future of Northwest architecture. At Colin Granger Official." The next morning, the story had jumped from social media gossip to real-world consequences. The Pacific Business Herald ran with the headline, "Whitmore family celebration overshadowed as daughter's 97 Mellis wins steals spotlight." They laid out the facts. The hidden contract, my father's statements about me struggling, the public reveal, and my absence from the guest list. The American Commerce Tribune picked it up, quoting an unnamed Whitmore board member. "Any leadership that can't recognize talent under their own roof raises serious questions." Whitmore Urban Group's stock dropped 8% in early trading, wiping out roughly $39 million in market value before lunch. The board called an emergency meeting. Tyler's much-touted promotion to chief commercial strategist, scheduled for January, was quietly pushed aside pending review. According to someone inside the company, Tyler's assistant, who'd always been kind to me, the $58 million partnership deal he'd bragged about was being re-examined after the client expressed concerns about Whitmore Urban's internal culture. And then, at 3:17 a.m. on Tuesday, my father sent a 4-page email. It swung between apology, rationalization, and bargaining. "Linda, I see now that perhaps I misjudged certain situations in my effort to shield you from the pressures of executive life. Your mother and I wanted to give you space to find your own path without the burden of Whitmore expectations." He went on to say the board was overreacting, that the media had twisted the story, and that we needed to present a united front. Then came the offer. He proposed creating a brand new role for me, Senior Vice President of Development, reporting directly to him. With a base salary of $920,000, bonuses, stock options, and the immediate transfer of 18% of his personal shares, making me one of the largest individual shareholders in Whitmore Urban Group. He suggested folding the Tahoe Crest project under the Whitmore umbrella, to give you access to more robust resources and position it as part of the Whitmore legacy. We can announce your appointment at the December board meeting, he wrote, and clarify to the market that you are a valued leader in this family and in this company. I read it twice, marked it as read, and didn't answer. He called 17 times over the next 6 hours. Each voicemail was a different version of the same plea. The last one was 12 seconds long. Linda, sweetheart, I was wrong. Just tell me what you want. But what I wanted, he couldn't give me. 29 years of being seen, 29 years of being invited, 29 years of not being the footnote to someone else's narrative. Those years were gone. The extended family's reaction surprised me more than the market's. My phone lit up with messages. From Aunt Caroline. I always wondered why you couldn't make it to so many dinners. Greg always said you were tied up with your little projects. I should have questioned it. I'm sorry, honey. From Uncle Daniel. Your grandmother called me furious. She's proud of you. She wants you to know that. From Evan Carlisle, my cousin in Boston. Just saw the Tahoe Crest story. You're incredible. Also saw the engagement video. What a disaster. Team Linda forever. Then my grandmother called. Darling girl, Marjorie said, no preamble. I've watched my son become someone I hardly recognize. The Gregory I raised would never have shut his own daughter out. You did absolutely nothing wrong by living your life. She paused. You built something from nothing. That's what your grandfather and I did. That's Whitmore grit. Don't you dare apologize for succeeding. The family WhatsApp group I'd mysteriously stopped receiving messages from 2 years ago suddenly added me back. I watched in silence as 15 relatives quietly removed themselves from Tyler and Greg's followers list on social media. My mother stayed quiet through most of the storm, until one afternoon a notification popped up. She'd liked my Tahoe Crest announcement. Then she shared it to her own page with a short caption, "So proud of my daughter Linda Walker and the work she's doing." No mention of Whitmore Urban Group, no photo of my father, just pride. Professionally, everything moved at warp speed. Within 10 days, Walker Creative Architecture had gone from an in-demand boutique studio to one of the most talked-about firms in the region. 7 new contracts were signed in the first week alone. The Patterson Group hired us for a $46 million mixed-use development in a trendy Portland neighborhood. Mountain Vista Resorts offered us 3 properties to redesign. The City of Portland's Public Infrastructure Division reached out about a new $71 million flagship public library. Our tentative project pipeline jumped to $275 million under negotiation. I had to turn work down for the first time in my career. We moved out of our small studio and leased an entire floor, then 2, then 3, of Skyline Crest Tower, just a handful of stories above Summit Ridge's headquarters. We grew from 12 to 35, then to 52 people in under a year. The Northwest Enterprise Journal did a feature titled, "From Invisible Daughter to Design Powerhouse, How Linda Walker Quietly Built a 9-Figure Portfolio." Modern Structures Review ran a longer profile. The National Guild of Modern Architects invited me to keynote their annual forum. My talk title, "Building Without Permission, Redesigning the Structures That Hold Us Back." The speaking fee alone was more than what Tyler used to brag about making in a quarter. Every award, every article, every contract felt like another brick in a foundation I'd finally started pouring for myself. Tyler and Alyssa's story didn't fare as well. 2 weeks after the party, Alyssa posted a carefully composed photo of herself looking out over a balcony with the caption, "Sometimes you have to decide if you're in love with the person or the lifestyle attached to them." Her follower count had dipped from 3.4 million to just over 2.7 million as brands quietly paused collaborations, not wanting to be associated with the Whitmore engagement meltdown. The comments were brutal. "How could you not know Linda wasn't invited? Your silence told us everything. You stood next to him while he erased his sister." Tyler, according to mutual friends, spent most of his time pacing his office, ranting about how I'd plotted everything just to humiliate him. In his version, I'd known about the engagement party all along and timed my Tahoe trip and ski post for maximum drama. The Sun Valley wedding they'd booked for June was postponed to allow for family healing. The ring quietly disappeared from Alyssa's photos. One evening I got a DM from her. "Linda, I've been replaying the last few years in my head," she wrote. "You were a good friend to me in college. I let Tyler and your father rewrite who you were, and I didn't ask questions. I'm sorry. You deserved better from all of us. I'm starting to realize the Whitmore name costs more than it's worth. Coffee sometime? A. I didn't respond right away, but a week later, she posted something about choosing self-respect over status. I liked it. It was the closest thing to forgiveness I could offer at the time. My father asked to meet face-to-face a couple of weeks after the expo. We chose a small cafe in a quiet part of Portland, far from towers and boardrooms. He looked older than I remembered, softer around the eyes, as if the last few weeks had been years. "Thank you for coming," he said, voice low. I stirred my coffee and waited. "The board is pressuring me to step down as president," he admitted. "They say I've shown poor judgment. They keep asking how I could miss what was right in front of me." He swallowed. "Help me understand how we got here." I set my spoon down. "You got here," I said, "by deciding who I was long before you ever asked. Every time you listed Tyler's accomplishments at dinner and skipped mine. Every time there was a family photo and no one thought to check if I was in it. Every time you told people I was finding myself when I was actually up until 2 a.m. building something real." "I thought I was protecting you from pressure," he said weakly. "No," I shook my head. "You were protecting your own story. The one where your son follows your footsteps and your daughter stays safely decorative on the sidelines." He looked down. "What do you want from me, Linda?" he asked. "I want 3 things," I said. "No more lies. If there's a family event, I hear about it when everyone else does. If Tyler's invited, so am I. And you don't get to belittle my work again. No more dabbling, no more little projects, no more telling rooms of people that I'm fragile or lost." He nodded slowly. "And if I can't do that? Then I'll love you from a distance," I said. "But I won't let you shrink me to fit your comfort ever again." We sat there in silence for a while, the cafe's soft clinking and low music filling the space between us. "Will you come to Christmas?" he asked finally. "I'll think about it," I said. When December rolled around, a thick cream-colored envelope arrived at my office, addressed to Ms. Linda Walker in elegant calligraphy. Inside was the official invitation to the Whitmore Winter Gathering at Maple Ridge Estates. My name was in the same font and size as everyone else's. For a moment, I just stared at it. Then I placed it back in the envelope, wrote a short note, and mailed it back. "Thank you for the invitation. Unfortunately, I have prior commitments. Wishing you a peaceful holiday. Linda." Those commitments were real, just not the kind he meant. On Christmas Day, I hosted my own gathering. My team and their families filled my loft with laughter and mismatched sweaters. Colin and Dana came by with a bottle of wine and stories about the Tahoe site. My grandmother arrived with a tin of cookies and her old photo albums. And to my surprise, my mother showed up at noon, clutching a homemade pie, eyes already shiny. "I should have spoken up for you," Elaine said quietly at my door. "Every time. I'm sorry." We didn't talk about Gregory that day, or Tyler, or the company. We talked about art, about the architecture books she used to hide under her bed before she married my father, about the years she abandoned her own sketches because there wasn't time. A few days after Christmas, on the 27th, Tyler finally texted, "I'm sorry for what I said at the party. I was wrong." 17 words, no explanation, no real accountability. I wrote back too. "Thank you." A couple of weeks later, I saw a familiar article pop up on my LinkedIn feed, my profile from Modern Structures Review about Tahoe Crest. It had been shared by Gregory Whitmore. Caption: "Proud of my daughter Linda Walker and her groundbreaking work with Summit Ridge Resorts." The comments were vicious. "Now you're proud? Where was this energy when you didn't invite her? Too little, too late." He didn't reply to any of them, but it was a crack in the wall. My mother and I began a new tradition: monthly lunches, just the two of us. No discussion of board votes, no talk of promotions, just two women eating salads and slowly undoing years of silence. 6 months later, I stood on the rocky ground at the Tahoe Crest construction site, hard hat on, wind tugging at my jacket, watching as prefabricated modules swung gently from cranes into place. The mountains towered around us. My design, the one they'd called impossible, was rising faster than projected, under budget and outperforming every environmental target. My phone buzzed, a text from Colin. CNN wants to feature Tahoe Crest as part of a piece on sustainable luxury. You free next Thursday? I glanced back toward the valley. Walker Creative Architecture now occupied 3 floors of Skyline Crest Tower. We had 52 employees and active projects worth more than $275 million. We'd just been shortlisted for the Portland International Airport expansion, a contract Whitmore Urban Group had failed to win 3 times. My relationship with my family had found its own sober rhythm. Greg and I exchanged the occasional email, short notes acknowledging each other's achievements, nothing more. Tyler kept his distance, still circling his own hurt. The wedding to Alyssa never happened. Last I heard, she'd moved to New York to rediscover herself, as her caption put it. And that ski photo? I've never apologized for it. I didn't storm the party. I didn't show up to make a scene or give some grand speech. I went where my father told me to go. I posted a picture of my life as it actually was. Their reaction to my absence revealed more than my presence ever could have. My therapist said something that stuck with me. The most powerful thing you did wasn't landing the contract or going viral, she told me. It was refusing to make yourself smaller to protect their comfort. She was right. I didn't ruin their night. Their lies did. I didn't dismantle my father's carefully crafted image. He did that himself, the moment he chose exclusion over honesty. All I did was succeed loudly enough that the truth couldn't be swept aside anymore. So if you're listening to this, and you recognize yourself in any part of my story, if you've ever been the sibling left out of photos, the child no one mentions, the one whose achievements are treated like hobbies, I want you to hear me clearly. Your worth is not defined by whether your family sees it. You don't need anyone's permission to build something beautiful. You don't have to stay small to keep someone else comfortable. Set your boundaries. Choose the people who clap for you without being prompted. Build what you dream of, even if you have to start in the cracks they left you in. Because in the end, that's the quiet truth underneath all of this. By pushing me out, they forced me to grow so strong I never needed to claw my way back in. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it resonated with you, comment boundaries, so I know I'm not alone out here. And remember, your success doesn't need anyone's permission. Standing on that mountain ridge months later, watching those giant steel modules swing against the pale blue Tahoe sky, I realized something I had spent years trying not to admit. I had been running my whole life, not from failure, but from the fear that the people who were supposed to love me simply never saw me. And yet, in that moment, surrounded by the cold wind and the quiet hum of machinery, I finally understood the truth. I didn't need them to see me anymore. I saw myself, clearly, fully, proudly. The air smelled like pine and winter sunlight, the kind of air that feels honest. My team was scattered across the ridge, tiny figures in neon vests, laughing, shouting measurements, waving plans in the wind. They looked to me for direction, trust written in their eyes in a way my own family never managed. Maybe leadership isn't inherited, maybe it's built. Dana walked over, tablet in hand, cheeks flushed. You know, she said, glancing around. Colin wasn't exaggerating. This project is going to change the industry. Her voice softened. And you earned every inch of this mountain. Her words landed deeper than I expected. I'd heard praise before, but rarely from someone who had watched me rise all the way from the foundation. I thought back to every time my father called my work dabbling, every time I stood awkwardly at family gatherings wondering if I should speak or stay invisible, every time I swallowed my hurt because I didn't want to be difficult. Now, looking at Tahoe Crest, taking shape piece by piece, I realized I'd been difficult in the best possible way, difficult to erase. Later that day, as we drove down the mountain, my grandmother called. She asked about the construction, the team, the new contracts. Then she paused. "I hope you know, Linda," she said quietly, "that sometimes families lose their way. They forget what matters. But you never did. You remembered who you were, even when we didn't." I felt that ache behind my ribs, the good kind, the healing kind. "Grandma," I whispered, "I just didn't want to disappear." "Then don't," she said, "not for anyone." When the call ended, the car felt warmer. I stared at the passing trees and thought about the strange, beautiful irony. The moment I stopped fighting for a place in my family was the moment the world opened a place for me. Weeks later, I gave my keynote speech at the National Architectural Leadership Forum. The room was filled with hundreds of architects, students, and industry leaders. They'd framed my image on a 30-foot screen, the caption reading, "Redefining Boundaries, the Walker Approach to Modern Architecture." As I stood behind the podium, that old, familiar nervous flutter crawled up my spine. But this time, it wasn't fear. It was power. I told them about vision, about innovation, about building structures that support human dignity. But eventually, because it felt necessary, I spoke about something more personal. "I used to believe success was a seat at someone else's table," I said. "I thought if I worked hard enough, quietly enough, respectfully enough, someone in my life might finally say, 'We're proud of you.' But the truth is, you can spend years knocking on a door that was never meant to open." The audience went silent. "So I built my own," I continued, voice steady, "and I filled it with people who saw my worth from the moment they walked in. When I finished, the room rose into a standing ovation, the kind that hits your soul before it hits your ears." After the event, a young woman approached me, tears in her eyes. "My family doesn't believe in me either," she said. "Hearing your story, it made me think that maybe I don't have to wait for their permission." I squeezed her hand. "You don't," I told her. "Start anyway. And if you're listening to this right now wondering the same thing, hear me clearly. You do not need anyone's permission to shine. You do not need a family's approval to become extraordinary. You do not need their seat when you can build your own table." If you've stayed with me until the end, thank you so much. Stories like this are written straight from the heart, and every like or share from you gives this channel the strength to keep going. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the main character truly deserved this ending? Which moment hurt you or made you the most angry? And what direction would you like to see in future episodes? If you enjoy this style of storytelling, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss what comes next. Every viewer is a huge motivation for me to keep creating better stories. Thank you so much for being here. See you in the next episode.